It was the kind of night that seeped into your bones. Cold, biting, with a wind that howled through the trees like a restless ghost. Matthew Carter, a 38-year-old single dad living in a quiet, snow-blanketed town in Vermont, pulled his coat tighter as he stepped onto his back porch. He was checking on the old shed, a rickety, weather-beaten structure that had seen better days but still housed his tools, winter salt, and the makeshift sled he and his daughter, Lily, had built the previous December. Life had been hard since Beth, his wife, passed away 2 winters ago. The cancer came quick, and the grief even quicker. Now, it was just Matthew and 7-year-old Lily, finding their way through the days one small joy at a time. But that night would change something in both their lives. As Matthew approached the shed, something in the corner of his eye moved, a flicker of shadow against the snow. His heart skipped. It wasn't the kind of place where strangers wandered in, not in the dead of night, and not with temperatures hovering well below freezing. He paused. "Hello," he called, the word vanishing into the wind. A small, shivering figure emerged from behind the shed. A woman, early 30s, maybe, her hair matted, cheeks raw from the cold. She clutched an old, tattered coat around her thin frame. I'm sorry," she stammered, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to." Matthew's instincts warred within him. A father's protective caution against a stranger so close to his home, and a human's visceral response to someone in obvious need. But one look into her desperate, glassy eyes made the decision for him. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get you inside." Inside the warmth, Matthew ushered her into the small, cozy kitchen. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon, Lily's favorite candle burning on the windowsill. The woman hesitated at the doorway, wary, exhausted. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she murmured. "I didn't think you were," Matthew replied, setting a mug under the coffee maker. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, sleepy-eyed and curious. "Dad, it's okay, sweetheart," Matthew assured her. "Go back to bed. I'll explain in the morning." The woman's name was Claire. That much he learned after she managed a few sips of coffee, hands trembling as warmth returned to her. She was on the run, not from the law, but from a life that had unraveled. A lost job, an abusive relationship, no family to turn to. She'd been living out of her car for weeks until it finally gave out on a back road nearby. "I wasn't gonna steal. I needed somewhere to stay for the night," Claire confessed, shame heavy in her voice. Matthew saw in her the reflection of his own grief, of what it felt like to stand on the edge of hopelessness. The night Beth died, he too had sat alone in the cold, wondering how to keep going. And it was a neighbor's simple gesture, a bowl of stew and a promise that this too shall pass, that pulled him back from that edge. "Everybody needs a little help sometimes," he said quietly. The next morning, by dawn, the storm had softened. The world outside blanketed in fresh snow. Matthew made pancakes, Lily's weekend favorite, and invited Claire to stay for breakfast. Hesitant at first, she eventually cracked a small, grateful smile as Lily chatted away about her snowman building plans. Afterward, Matthew offered to drive Claire to the local shelter, but something in his gut told him not to rush this. Instead, he suggested she stay in the guest room for a night or two, just until she figured out her next step. "People might talk," Claire warned. "Let them," Matthew shrugged. What neither of them knew then was that those 2 nights would turn into weeks. An unexpected twist. One evening, while clearing out the old shed together, a chore Matthew had been putting off for months, Claire found an envelope wedged behind a loose board. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Faded, handwritten notes from a man named Samuel Carter, Matthew's grandfather, to his wife during the war. But there was one letter, addressed but never sent, speaking of a hidden box buried under the oak tree in the backyard. Curious, they dug near the old oak that very night. What they uncovered wasn't treasure in the conventional sense, but a small rusted tin filled with photographs, ration cards, and a locket containing a faded picture of a smiling young woman. Inside the locket, a note. "If you find this, you are not alone. This family survives." Matthew held it in his hand, stunned. He'd heard stories of his grandfather's quiet heroism, but never knew this side of him. It felt like a message, not just from the past, but for right now. For Claire. For him. For Lily. A new beginning. Word spread around town, as it always does in places like theirs. But what people gossiped about wasn't scandal, it was compassion. Neighbors brought meals. The local mechanic offered to look at Claire's car for free. A woman at the community center found her a part-time job. Slowly, the world that had seemed so cold to Claire cracked open, letting in light. By spring, Claire had her own small apartment a few blocks away, but remained a regular fixture in the Carters' lives. She and Lily planted a garden in the backyard where the oak tree stood, and every summer evening you could hear their laughter floating through the open windows. Matthew found, in Claire, not a replacement for Beth, but a friend. A reminder that grief lessens, that kindness matters, and that sometimes the people who stumble unexpectedly into your life are the ones who help stitch the broken pieces back together. A final thought. Years later, on another snowy night, Matthew would tell the story of how he found a shivering woman by his shed to his grandchildren. He would tell them how that night taught him a truth worth holding on to. You never know who you're saving when you choose kindness. It might be yourself. And somewhere in the old shed, that locket still hung by a nail, a quiet testament to the unbroken thread of humanity.